Good evening and welcome back to another session on the certificate course on Introduction to Disability Research, a legal and social studies perspective, organized by the Center for Disability and Research Training and the National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People. The topic for today's discussion is legal research and stages of research. Today, we're extremely fortunate to have with us Ms. Meenakshi Nagamanickam. Ms. Nagamanickam is a research scholar. She did her bachelor's in LLB from Symbiosis Law School, Hyderabad. She's currently pursuing LLM in Intellectual Property Laws from Rajiv Gandhi School of Intellectual Property Law, IIT Kharagpur. Along with that, she's also working on a project titled Geographical Indications and Part B registration in India. We welcome you, ma'am. I'd now like to invite Ms. Nagamanickam to deliver her talk.
Thank you. Thank you for such wonderful introduction. Okay, so let's directly dive into the class today. As we all saw yesterday, the stages of legal research, we understood in detail. We saw one by one. As discussed in the class in the end of the session yesterday, you people wanted certain examples of the same. So let's look into the examples and understand what and how the stages of research look like. Just a second, I'll be sharing my screen. There is some technical issue here. I'm unable to share my screen. It says your screen sharing is paused. Could someone help me with that?
Meenakshi, please close and start the sharing again.
Yeah, I tried doing, but it still says resume share, and when I'm clicking on it, it's not resuming. I'll try it once again. Anyways. I'm unable to use this resume share option. It's not happening.
Hold on.
I think only co-host can share. So, Meenakshi, I noticed not a co-host yet.
No, the rights to share the screen are given to all the participants, sir. I'm checking it though. Guys, just give us a couple of minutes. We are figuring it out.
Is my screen visible now?
Yes, yes, it is visible now. Yes.
Yeah, so let's begin the topic by understanding what mind mapping is. So as we saw yesterday, mind mapping happens throughout the research process. It is not in just beginning of the research that we do mind mapping. This happens throughout the process. Yesterday we didn't understand this concept clearly because we didn't have any example. So today let's understand with an example. Just a second. Yeah, here. So as you all can see here, the topic the researcher has chosen here is, excuse me, adolescent mental health. And here there are various aspects that the researcher thought it would be good to opt for this particular research. That is system level aspects, individual and family level aspects, community level aspects. So this is how a mind mapping looks like. So once you choose your area of interest, that is adolescent mental health. Just let's take this example for the time being that this is our area of interest and we're going to do a research on this. So we've chosen this topic, and once choosing this topic, what popped in our head was what are the various aspects of this adolescent mental health. So individual, family, system, community, there are various aspects, there are various level of aspects. So that was the first thing that came into my head or the researcher's head. After that, each of these topics are further divided into 3 or 4 subtopics. As we can see, promoting let's take an example of community level aspects. In that community level aspects, they are further divided into promoting youth identity, representation, inclusion. And within that inclusion topic, we have mental health inclusion awareness, LGBTQA plus, ethnic tribal background, religion. So as you can see, these are the various topics that the researcher has um, arrived at while conducting the research throughout. Like throughout the research process, the researcher has come up with all these topics in his head. So now you can divide. So as we can see here, these 3 aspects can be our objectives, then the questions to be answered can be the further subheadings, and the further routes can be our actual chapters and the topics that we're going to dwell into. So this is how a mind mapping actually looks like. So this can be done in a word, or depending on your feasibility and depending upon your convenience, you can draw it on paint or word document. You can just type it in word, or else the best option is to maintain a book and then draw this in your notebook, so that throughout the process this will help you navigate and help you to stick to the points that you are doing. Now let's say while the research process is going on, ongoing research process. Let's say it's for a year. Your time span to complete the project is a year. So in the 6th or 5th month, let's say, in your project, you feel that in system level aspects, you are not much confident about promoting responsible technology and digital media use. Let's say, just take an example. You're not sure about this particular topic. You're not sure whether this topic is going to fit into your research area, your research project, basically. So if you feel so, you can just straight away eliminate it here and just put a strike against the terms and just leave it. Later on, you can add other things as well. So here, throughout the process, you can either add or deduct, and accordingly, once you reach your, let's say, your 8th or 9th month of submission, you will have a proper mind mapping with you, because of which you can easily type your chapterizations as well, your chapters as well. So this is how mind mapping looks like. Next, the main thing, as we discussed yesterday, of a research project is the problem statement. If you don't have a problem in your head that you're going to address, then your research stands null and void. It won't. So basically, in legal terms, I can say void ab initio. It doesn't exist in the first place. Your research will not exist in the first place if you don't have a problem statement in your head. So I've taken few examples from LLM dissertation from my college here. So this topic, as you can see, the problem statement is taken from the topic implementation of geographical indication laws in India, challenges and future possibilities. This is done by one of the LLM students here. So as we can see, problem statement can be in one single paragraph like this, or there are few other problem statements which can be divided into 2 to 3, or let's say 4 to 5 paragraphs, depending upon your topic, depending upon your research project. So let's consider the one that we have at hand. Here, as we can see, I'll just read it out few lines so that we'll understand how it is actually framed, the problem statement. So this researcher starts off by saying, the basic purpose of protection of GI in India are for the prevention of unauthorized use of registered GIs by others, boosting of export of Indian GI in foreign markets, so on and so forth. So the very first line, the very first sentence, the researcher is introducing what the problem is within this law. What is the basic purpose of the law that he's introducing? He's introducing the problem statement. He's introducing the topic here. And the next sentence says, due to the diverse agroclimatic conditions and lucrative history of traditional knowledge relating to handicraft and textile industry, India has a very large variety of cultivators, artisans, and skilled workers with special attributes distinct from each countries or regions. So again, in the next sentence, he's describing about how the handicraft and textile industry is right now in India. What is the situation there? And then he's saying how this can offer certain advantages to it. And after that comes, he's just introducing, then he's taking us into the topic. And later, in the later part, in the later last 3 to 4 sentences, he's bringing the problem statement. You cannot just write the problem in beginning of the sentence. For instance, let's take the last line. The statute, that is the GI, where the GI Act, it is silent about having an institutional mechanism for benefit sharing. So this is the main problem that the researcher is dwelling into. He is addressing this problem in his research project. What is the problem? The problem is that the GI statute, it is silent about having an institutional mechanism for benefit sharing. There's no institutional mechanism for benefit sharing provided under this statute. That is what the researcher is pointing at. But the researcher cannot start his problem statement directly from this, saying that the statute is silent about so and so benefit sharing thing, and you just can't start with the problem itself. You have to introduce in 1 or 2 lines. You have to take the reader, whoever's reading, into like the next 2 to 3 lines. It should be in such a way that the reader, whoever's reading, should get into the topic, and finally you'll introduce what the actual problem is. So this is how short and crisp in 1 paragraph the researcher has put his problem statements. This is one of the example how a problem statement can look like. Okay, so let's see another example of problem statement. Here, this is about designing of hybrid financial instrument. This is totally related to the corporate law. Here, the researcher clearly has not confined his problem statement into one paragraph, right? It's divided into, let's say, 4 paras. He's explaining in depth, and then in the final paragraph he's saying, with a view to address the above said problems, we are going to do the further studies. So what the study would try to do, these two, the last, with a view to address these problems, that is all the above 4 paragraphs, he's addressing the problem. He's introducing the topic in the first para, the starting point of any work. He's just trying to bring the reader into the subject matter. He's introducing it. Then he's talking about what is the current practice in the second paragraph, and the third one he's talking about what these hybrid financial instruments, what they should do actually, and the next paragraph he's saying what is it actually lacking. So, and in the final paragraph he's saying, further, owing to the complex and flexible nature of such instruments, it becomes necessary, so on and so forth. He's actually addressing the problem here. And finally, with a view to address these problems, what are the objectives that the researcher has undertaken? He has directly put it here. But usually the study would try to, whatever the study is trying to do, it comes under research objectives. So this is how the problem statement can also look like. Apart from the problem statement being put in one paragraph, you can divide it into 3 to 4 paragraphs as well. Next coming is the literature review. This topic is of utmost importance because if you do not do your literature survey properly, you cannot type any chapter in your research project. So as we saw yesterday, in the last class, we saw that how a literature review is to be done, what is it, why is it needed. Now let's see how it actually looks like. So I've taken this literature review example from Dynamics of Higher Education Growth, Accessibility and Financing. So here what Mishra has done is, initially she started off by giving an introduction. The literature on higher education discusses so and so. She didn't directly start off with naming the article itself. She is writing the literature review in a flow. She's not separately mentioning the name of the article that she's reviewing. Okay, so there are different researchers use different styles to actually write this literature review. So the style that Mishra has adopted here is, she has framed it in such a way that she's discussing what is happening, and while discussing what is happening in higher education, what are the dynamics of it, while she's discussing it, she's actually reviewing the literature as well. So wherever you can see a footnoting, that is, as we can see here, 11, right? So this is a footnoting done, which means she's actually reviewing a literature over here, and in that literature this paragraph is being derived. Education has been considered both consumption and an investment good. It has intrinsic value besides providing financial returns in the future. All these sentences are taken from one particular literature, and she has reviewed that literature, and she has come up with this one particular paragraph in her own words. So this is how a literature review is done. This is one of the types how a literature review can be done. This is not, it's not hard and fast rule that a literature review should be in so and so paragraphs and it should have a flow, it should tell you a story. It depends upon your research. It depends upon the researcher, how he wants the reader to understand his entire topic by reading the literature review. So this is how Mishra has done. She has beautifully put it into a flow of events that she wants her reader to understand. And this is how she has taken forward the literature review. Now let's take another example. That is the sociological problems of women undergoing hysterectomy. So here, what Kanmani has done, she has directly, she didn't come up with a flow. She didn't come up with a flow of thought process like the one Mishra has done. Here, Kanmani has directly, she has directly spoken about each and every material that she's reviewed by stating what the author in that review has written. For instance, let's understand this, it's very easy. For instance, let's take the second point, that is Raju 1999, right? So here, what does this mean? The author is Raju and whatever his name is. So we're just taking the first name. I mean, we are taking the name of the researcher here. We just mentioned Raju. And 1999 is the year of publication. So basically, and yet here you will give a footnoting. The entire material will be footnoted. So what is the writer saying here? What is the researcher talking here? The researcher is pointing out that the researcher Raju 1999, like Kanmani is trying to say here that Raju, who is a researcher, in his research paper that was published in the year 1999, he agrees with the above and says that educational level of women and the type of household influences her, so on and so forth. So above, in the sense, the study conducted by Rao. So Rao has conducted some study in the year 1995. So as you can see, Kanmani has directly spoken about the papers that she's chosen for reviewing the literature, the papers that she's chosen, that is the literature that she's collected to carry forward her research. She has reviewed those literatures. She has directly stated that in such and such literature, in such and such article, what the author has given. So she's crystal clearly put it, and this is very simple. So this is another type of reviewing a literature. You can review literature like this as well. There's no hard and fast rule that it should be in a flow, in the sense it should be in this way as we saw. There's no hard and fast rule. Okay, now let's see. I've taken few other examples, and let's see, just a second. I hope you people are able to see the PDF. Is the PDF visible, or is the PowerPoint being displayed right now? Can someone help me with that? Is the PowerPoint being displayed, or is the PDF being displayed right now?
Ma'am, PowerPoint is displayed.
PowerPoint, okay. Just a second. I hope the PDF is being displayed now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's get into this. So we saw two methods in which a literature review can be written, right? Now, let's continue with that. So this is another literature review that we just saw. I in the slides in the PPT, we saw that I was going to come up with the other three literature reviews, right? So this is one of the literature review. So as we can see here, the researcher again here has come up with paragraphs. He has not directly come up with the name of the journal, of the article that he or she has chosen to review on. It's in a flow. It's list of things that the researcher wants to put forth, and it's in coming, he's portraying it in a very beautifully structured way. He's not just mentioning the name of the article and talking about what the article actually portrays. This author of yours is not doing that. The researcher of yours has come up with a flow of this particular topic that is about biotechnology, and as we can see, it's in paragraphs. Okay, and this is how it continues here. Now let's take an example of another one. So this literature review again here, Here, the researcher has begun by saying that India has enacted so and so, just a brief introduction. And in the end, you can see in the first paragraph, the last line, rural development possibilities as well as supply chain, whatever that one liner is from, let's go to 20. Okay, this is not very clear, but yeah. So this is how the footnoting is done. So basically, as we can see here, new frontiers of intellectual property law, IP and cultural heritage, right? So that is one paper that has been published in 2005, and the author has referred to that over here as well. Like we can see, right, an article written by another, the second para. So that second para, the article that the researcher has reviewed is footnoted in 21. So 21 talks about new frontiers of IP, cultural heritage of GI, geographical indications, right? So directly the author has started by saying an article written by another author discusses so and so. So here it is a combination of the two types that we already saw. So the first one that we saw was properly explaining in a connected way. There was a flow, and in the second example that we saw, we could on the face of it see that the researcher has directly written the name of the article over there, taken the name of the author of the article and directly said in that particular article whatever it has written, whatever the author has written in paragraphs, in one paragraph each. Here in this particular literature review, as we can see, it is a combination of both. First, the researcher here has introduced the topic, then directly said an article. Instead of naming the article's author here, the researcher preferred to write to start the paragraph by saying an article written by another author. So, and who is that author, what is that article, has been given clearly in the footnote number 21. That is this one, that is new frontiers of intellectual property and so on and so forth. So this is another method that you can adopt to write a literature review. So here, this is yet another type of literature review that you can do. Here, this is the most simplest one, but most of the colleges don't prefer this, but this is also one of the forms directly without giving the footnoting. So we saw here that an article was written here, an article, and what was the article we could figure out from the footnote. But here there is no footnote needed. The researcher has directly given what the article is, that is financial innovation in handbook, whatever that is, and then who the author is, what volume, which part, and everything, the page numbers and everything, and then directly summed up the entire article in one paragraph. The author writes on how hybrid instruments have come of age and more innovation is being adopted. So the entire article in a crux, this researcher has reviewed. So this is yet another one of the types of one of the methods in which you like how you can adopt, you can write your literature review. So let's have a quick recap. So this, as we are seeing, is one of the type. You can directly put the heading, you can directly give the name of the article, page number and everything, and you can clearly just sum it up in one para. Another thing, you can come up with a flow and then just write an article in between and then explain the article, but you have not mentioned the name of the article, you can mention the name of the article in the footnoting here. Another type is you can directly get into the topic itself. You can come up with a flow. You can actually start with an introduction, then you can get into the topic, and while getting into the topic, you have obviously chosen a particular article to review and you can review it over there. So these are the types, ways how you can write a literature review. Okay, I will stop sharing this and let's get back to PPT. Okay. So these are the three examples that we saw just now, the literature reviews that we saw just now. Next, hypothesis. So as we saw in the last class, hypothesis is just basically a hunch that the researcher has in the beginning of his research, and throughout the research process, he or she, the researcher, undertakes his research process based upon the hypothesis that they had in the beginning of the study, and after doing their study, they will get to know the final result and they will understand whether their hypothesis was true or false. That is the statement, the hunch that they had in the beginning of the entire research process. Was the hunch actually true or not? That is what hypothesis does. Now, let's get into the examples of hypothesis. So hypothesis can be in a single statement, or there can be 2 or 3 hypotheses as well. So the first one here, I've taken this from Disability, Selective Abortions and Rights of Persons with Disability, a study in contradiction. This is written by Smita S. From Nalsar, and she has undertaken the study under Amita Danda ma'am. So as we can see here, the hypothesis is very, very clear and is given in one sentence in a crux. So here the hypothesis says the legal status of disability selective abortions provided under the PNDT Act 1999 and the MTP Act 1971. Yeah, so basically all the abbreviations will be elaborated in the beginning of the research, what do you call, the dissertation or the research or the thesis that you submit. The first few pages before the abstract, you have abbreviations as well. So all the abbreviations will be elaborated over there. So let's continue. The MTP Act 1971 has been rendered questionable by UN Convention on Rights of, by this particular convention. So this is what the researcher has in her head, that the legal status of these acts are questionable. Why? Due to the convention. The convention is saying something else and the legal status of these acts is something else. So this is the hunch that the researcher has in the beginning, that Smita had in the beginning of her research. So this is one of the example. Another example, I've taken it from Corporation and Disability Rights, Bridging the Digital Divide by Amit, again from Nalsar, and this was also undertaken under Amita Danda ma'am. So here in this example, as we can see, the hypothesis is not given in one single paragraph, in one particular sentence. It is divided into 2 paragraphs. So as we saw, depending upon the research being undertaken, the hypothesis may confine to 1, or it may be elaborated into 2 or 3 paragraphs, or certain research projects which are not that complex, as we saw in the previous class. If your research project is not that complex, it does not have to have a hypothesis. Hypothesis is not compulsory. So let's continue. Here the hypothesis begins by saying the disability rights jurisprudence, the right to access the internet is a core human right. The realization of this core human right can only be guaranteed if corporations are also recognized as duty bearers, so on and so forth. So this is the first paragraph. Now second paragraph, the effective realization of this right to access the internet demands new legal and strategic frameworks. So in the first para, Amit is trying to say that this is what it is a core human right, and there are certain barriers in it. And in the second paragraph, what are the demands, what are the legal and strategic frameworks that are to be undertaken, that are to be obtained by the corporate compliance. So this is how Amit has divided his hypothesis into 2 points, into 2 paragraphs. This is another example how you can write a hypothesis. And here, let's understand the hypothesis by another example as well. Here you can see the researcher has divided the hypothesis into 3 pointers. Usually people prefer writing hypotheses in paragraphs, either in 1 or 2 or maximum 3 paragraphs. But to keep it very simple so that a reader can understand in one go, people also tend to divide it into pointers. So as we can see here, I've taken this from Dynamics of Higher Education Growth, Accessibility and Financing. It's by Mishra Rashmi. So here what Mishra Rashmi has done, she has clearly divided into pointers. That is the first one. The expenditure on education is inadequate and decreasing over time. So this is the hunch that she's having. Okay, this is the hunch that she had in beginning of her research work. What that the expenditure on education is inadequate and the same is decreasing over time. And the second one is privatization of higher education will defeat the purpose of education being public or social good. And the third one being accessibility, inclusiveness, and quality have increased over time in the sphere of higher education. So these are the statements that Rashmi thought actually exists or on these lines that she is going to undertake her study. So at the end of her research, based on these hunches, she will get to know, after her research has been done, through her findings and results, she'll get to know whether the statement, let's take the statement, for example, the expenditure on education is inadequate and decreasing over time. So we all know that the budget comes every year. So based on, I mean, whenever the budget is being introduced, so in the budget, there's a particular separate, section for education, how much it should be spent on education as well. So in such cases, I'm just taking a hypothetical example to explain you. So let's say such expenditure has been inadequate and decreasing over time is her hunch. But let's say in reality, this is not so. In reality, through all the literature available out there, through all the journal publications, all the law commission reports, all the reports available in the public domain, we get to know that the budget is actually increasing. They're actually spending a lot on education. So what happens? This hypothesis that Rashmi has undertaken had it in the beginning of a research project, at the end of a project after her findings, this is proven to be wrong. So either your hypothesis can be right or wrong, you will get to know at the end of your research. So this is another type of, another way in which you can present your hypothesis. So let's take a quick recap. It can be in one single paragraph in a crux. It can either be divided into two, depending, all this depends upon your research topic. And finally, into pointers. So that was about hypothesis. Now let's get into research objectives. So research objectives, how do you present them? Definitely objectives are in pointers only. Most of the research papers, if I might say 3/4 of the research papers out there, they tend to give it in pointers. Your objective should be very, very clear. So what, and all these objectives, how do you derive it? Based on your statement, problem of statement. Some problem, you thought this is the problem with the particular research area, and based on that, you have designed your research objectives. So let's take an example of this. The research here, the research paper is design and analysis of secured access control mechanism for outsourced cloud data. This is about cloud data. Here, the researcher, what has he done? He has clearly in one line stated that secured outsourced data access control in cloud is a burning research field. There are many unsolved issues available in terms of security and privacy in outsourced data access control. And in order to tackle such problems, what are the objectives that he has identified that has been properly written by the researcher in his project? The first one, to design a secure, we saw yesterday how to begin objectives. It might begin with to analyze, to examine, to suggest at the end. Similarly, you can also write like this: to design a secured access control, to improve the efficiency, to incorporate the data. Again, the terms will differ depending upon your research topic. Here it is totally related to IT sector. As we can see, this is from Department of Information. It's about cloud control. So it's about cloud data, how the mechanism works there. So that is why it's beginning with to design, to improve the efficiency, to incorporate the data like this. If you're undertaking any social science project, or if you're undertaking any legal research as such, to analyze, to examine, to inquire, all these terminologies are, it will very well go with your social science researches or law researches for that matter. Let's see another example. Okay, in order to go through these examples, I'm just stopping here and pausing here, and let's go to the PDF, sorry, let's go to the PDF and look into these examples. Is my PDF visible or still the PPT is visible?
PDF visible, ma'am.
Okay. Let's continue with the research objective. So here, as we can see, as we saw in the last class, to analyze, to examine, right? So here, to analyze the scope of operation of standard patents, to examine the roles played by SSO in standard setting process, to analyze the stance taken by courts in various jurisdictions. So this is how a legal research objective can begin with, even social sciences for that matter. Let's see another example. Okay, also one point to be noted here, most of the researchers, they tend to state their objectives under the heading nature and scope of the study. While doing so, they might even point out the limitation. That is, for instance, limitation might go something like this, that the research is confined to India's scenario, India's current situation. So basically, the researcher is saying that he is not going to compare with the other jurisdictions for that matter. So what your study is limiting to might be given under the heading limitations of the study. And whenever it says nature and scope of study, it's nothing but the objectives of the study. So coming back to the objectives, here under the heading nature and scope of the study, the researcher has stated as follows: to study the evolution of hybrid instruments. Okay, here he meant to analyze the position in various jurisdictions, and then to analyze the consideration, namely tax, corporate governance, etc., etc. So this is how research objectives are supposed to begin. Let me go back to the PPT. Yeah. So the next. Now we saw the research objectives. So as we all know, based on our objectives, we usually frame the questions. So each objective might have 2 to 3 questions. This is how ideally it works. But most of the research projects that I've gone through, I understood that the research objectives, mostly the researchers, what they do not correlate their research objectives to the research questions, in the sense they do not confine that point number 1 and point number 2, that is research question number 1 and research question number 2 is related to research objective number 1. As we saw, each objective has 2 questions. Let's take an example, that point number 1, point A, that is A objective has 1 and 2 questions. B objective has 3, 4 questions. C objective has 5 and 6 questions. So not every researcher has followed this particular method. They just come up with 2 to 3 objectives for that matter, but their questions might run into 6 to 7. But ideally, 3 to 4 research objectives, and for each objective, 2 to 3 questions. This is how an ideal research objective and question look like. So let's continue. So I've taken this research question example from barriers to recovery from psychosis, examining the medico-legal landscape from a peer perspective. So here what Pratiksha has done, let's see, she's also from Nalsar, and this is also done under Amita Rananan. So here directly, Pratiksha has directly started off by questioning how does a diagnosis impact individuals and families. what is recovery and how it is conceptualized globally and in the Indian context. So on and so forth. Now, as we can see, the questions that have been undertaken by the researcher, these questions will be answered in the chapters. So based on the questions of here, let's say one chapter can be, so the second question is, what is recovery and how is it conceptualized globally and in the Indian context? So one chapter can talk only about recovery and what it is in India and in other countries. So one chapter can be based on this question. So you will be answering your research questions in the chapters, in various chapters. That is how now we understand how all of these are connected, interrelated. So from the problem statement, you come up with your objectives, and based on the objectives, you come up with the questions, and all these questions are being answered in your chapters. So this is how it works. Let's take another example. Okay. I'll stop here and go back to the PDFs where we can see the research questions examples from these two research papers. Okay. So here, how does the research question look like in this particular project? Here, the researcher has begun by asking, what is the scope of operation of standard essential patents? What could be the significant approach? And what are the FRAND terms in licensing? So basically, direct questions. And based on these questions, again, the researcher will formulate chapters and answer these questions in those chapters. Here. Again, what is supplementary protection certificate? What are the policy aspects related to this? To what extent this is available in individual countries, in EU as well as non-EU countries? And how and what is it, to what extent do the Indian companies seek this certificate? And what are the strategies that the Indian companies undertake? So with precision, one by one in a flow, the research questions have been drafted, and these research questions will be answered in the chapters. So this is it. Now let's get back to PPT. Yeah, these were the two examples that we just saw. Okay. As initially I told you in the beginning of the class itself and in the beginning of the lecture series, the stages, this is how it looks. One research objective, that is research objective A, has two research questions. Research objective B has three research questions, and C has again three. So this is how you're supposed to frame your research questions. Based on the research objectives, your research questions will be framed. Now let's see how it works. First research objective here, to analyze the evolving jurisprudence of the GI at international level. GI is basically geographical indications at the international level and the Indian response to the same. So based on this objective, what are the research questions framed by the researcher? It is how the law on GI has evolved. So first we are analyzing the evolving jurisprudence, right? So the question would be how the law on GI has evolved as an intellectual property, how it has evolved, and what are the different approaches adopted by GI protection at different jurisdictions. So basically the entire jurisprudence, how it has evolved and what is its position right now, what are the different approaches adopted by different countries. So based on the research objective, the researcher has given apt research questions. Similarly, as we can see the B, let's take the B objective. What is B? To examine the current status of implementation of the act and the impact of this on the economic conditions of authorized users. So let's take the example of weavers as authorized users. So let's take the example of Kanchipuram sari. So Kanchipuram sari, the weavers weave the sari, right? So what are the economic conditions of such weavers? So that, and what is their status according to the act. So what are the research questions the researcher has framed here? How the GI registry works pre and post registration. That is, let's say Kanchipuram sari is there out there. Before registering, before giving the GI tag to Kanchipuram saris, what was the working aspect of GI registry, and what is their working process after the registration? So pre-post registration activities. Next, what is the current status? What is its
I'm
status
sorry,
right now?
may I just interrupt for a moment, please?
Yeah.
When you say GI, this is the entire thing is now GI. You have to could you explain what is GI actually significant?
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Because I'm lost completely. I keep saying GI.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So GI is basically geographical indications. So
Of what?
geographical indications fall under the heading intellectual property rights. So geographical indications are something like, I'll give you an example. Hyderabad Halim. So
Yeah.
Halim is from this area, Hyderabad, right? It is very famous over there. So due to its name and fame, it has been given the tag. So whenever someone comes with Halim, it's from Hyderabad. So that is the geography. So geographically, it has been indicated that Halim is from Hyderabad. And that's how the GI registry will give the tag. Similarly, Bengal Rasagulla. So
there's a GI registry of all these type of things, like Rasagulla maybe for Calcutta, or
yeah, exactly. So different areas, different tags are given. So similarly,
so intellectual property and Halim, could you correlate that, please? Because I don't understand why.
Okay, I'll explain. So IP, intellectual property, has various streams under it. So one of it is geographical indication. Within geographical indication, so the name itself says geographical is geography, a particular geographical area, and indication is you're indicating, you're giving the tag to it. It might be under handicraft, it might be for a particular food, it might be for a particular manufactured article. So in food, we just saw food stuff is Hyderabad Halim. In Hyderabad, Halim became famous. So they gave the tag to it. And Tirupati Laddu. So Laddu in Tirupati became really famous, right? Due to its particular XYZ factors, it became famous and it got the tag. Similarly, in handicrafts, it's saris from Kanchipuram, like that, from handicraft sector. So this is how it goes about. I hope I explained.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I can interpret properly. So
yeah. I'm sorry. I just wanted to give examples as how to frame research questions, but thank you for clarifying. Yeah, definitely.
The base concept that
yes. That's understood. Thank you for asking me in this question.
I'm layman, you see, so I don't know.
Yeah. Definitely.
Thank you for helping. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So let's continue with this. So how do you frame research questions? We were in objective B. So as we can see, objective B is talking about the act itself and how the authorized users, as we've taken the example of weavers. So how their conditions have been affected due to this. I mean, their economic conditions. So these are the questions being framed by the researcher. And let's get to the C topic, that is C objective. To examine the possibility of integrating mandatory benefit sharing mechanism. That is, benefit sharing mechanism is the community as a whole. You have to share the benefits, whatever you're getting the benefit, like from, let's say, weaving, the weaving community. Let's take the example of the weaving community. The benefits that they are reaping, it should be shared among the community. So this is what it is basically. So for that particular objective, the research questions framed by the researcher here is, what is the current legal regime on benefit sharing? What are the laws out there under the international and conventions and our national laws, that is the Geographical Indication Act? What are the laws that are available for such benefit sharing? Then what are the successful models that benefit, by taking examples like let's take the example of same Kanchipuram saris. Let's take the example of the sari. Okay, so how it has helped the entire weaving community as a whole. So was it a successful model? So if it was a successful model, the researcher over here will take example of Kanchipuram sari and he will explain it in the chapters, in the foregoing chapters. So then the last one is, what is the appropriate model? So what will be the appropriate one for India? So this is how an ideal one should look like, but mostly researchers don't opt this. Very few go for this. So each research objective should ideally consist of 2 to 3 questions, and these all will be answered together in the chapters. So this is about research questions and research objectives. Next is the chapterization. Now, as we all saw yesterday, I mean, the last class, previous class, we didn't discuss much about chapterization. So we just stopped before methodology. Methodology was explained by Ms. Bhavya. So after methodology comes the chapterization. How are you going to divide the chapters and what all your chapters represent? So that let's say your chapter 2, for example, let's take this particular research topic, that is design and analysis access control mechanism. Same for cloud data. This is related to information technology. Okay, so here the second chapter, first chapter is definitely for introduction. So you need not explain your introduction in the organization of chapters. If you can, if you want to, you can, but mostly researchers don't do. They start off with the second chapter. That is here, as we can see, the researcher has divided the chapter in this scheme. The second chapter represents or presents the detailed development of procedure of background constructing whatever. It's totally related to the information field. Then again, chapter 3, what was the first proposed scheme? Then chapter 4, the second proposed, chapter 5, third proposed scheme. All the schemes the researcher is explaining in each chapters. The sixth, that is the concluding chapter. Sixth chapter concludes the thesis with the summary findings, discussions, and so on. So this is how you will explain your chapters in gist, in crux. Let's say chapter 2 is running into 10 to 15 pages. So all that content should be concised into one paragraph and put under the heading chapterization or organization or presentation of the research, that is thesis or dissertation or whatever. So this is one of the example. Let's get into the second example. Here I've taken again the same topic, disability, selective abortions and rights of persons with disability. So here, as I said, you can name it as organization. What do I call it? Like chapters are organized as follows, or chapterization, or even presentation of the study. How are you presenting your research paper? So that you can explain in gist, that is prenatal testing is mainly performed so and so. You can explain it in like the initial introduction you want to add, you can add, but mostly, as I said, they don't. So there's no hard and fast rule here that you shouldn't mention the introduction part. You can. Then again, as we can see, the researcher has started off by saying here, the chapter 2. In chapter 2, the ideas and events which have resulted in the life-threatening prejudice subsisting. So basically, whatever the chapter 2 content is, the researcher is explaining here. So on and so forth. Chapter 3, 4, 5, everything. And finally, specific findings and suggestions. Usually in the concluding chapter, it is all about suggestions and findings and results. So this will be your concluding chapter. So all the chapters should be explained in crux. Another example is enforcement of environmental law and policy, a comparative study of India and Ethiopia. So here the topic is about environment law. So here, as I said, here we can see that the researcher has introduced even the first chapter, starting from the first chapter. The paper is comprised of 7 chapters, and the researcher has clearly explained what each chapter consists of. First is definitely introduction, then literature review, then everything. So here again, you can term your literature review as second chapter, but mostly researchers avoid doing so. They don't consider literature review as second chapter. They put it before the chapters, before the chapterization, like in the initial, before, like after introduction part, they give the literature review, and they usually don't consider it as second chapter. but you can do that as well depending upon your guide. So yes, and then the 4th chapter, 5th, 6th, 7th, and finally, as we can see, the 7th chapter, what is the conclusion and the recommendations given by the researcher based on the findings, based on his major findings. So again, this is how the chapterization looks like. Okay, I will stop here and I'll answer any questions. If you have any questions, you can ask. I'm ready to answer.
Audio that was used recorded. Use my audio.
Okay, if there are no questions, I will continue with citations. So we just saw the examples of the different research topics. I mean, the research. Yeah, we just saw all the examples of each and every important heading under your research. So that is over. Now we will get into citation. I will just share the screen. Before starting with citation, we have to remember that usually the conferences, they ask for conferences or any call for papers, they ask for blue book citation specifically. This blue book citation is of US origin and Oscola is of UK. Similarly, there are many other citations, but all of them, most of them, in fact, 3/4 out there are from foreign countries. We in India, most of the universities, they ask for blue book, yes, but we should remember that our country has come up with standard Indian legal citation that is specifically for, I mean, it's originated in India. So they are still working on it. They are still, I mean, they were drafting it. They've come up with one. They are still undergoing certain changes. So it's basically in its process. So first, let's understand Blue Book, because that's what most of the universities ask for. After that, we will look into standard Indian legal citation as well. Let me share the screen. Yeah, as we all can see here, just a second. Okay. So directly go to Google and type Blue Book Citation latest edition. That's it. And the very first website that appears is Blue Book Legal Citation System Guide. So just click on this. It will direct you to Harvard Law School Library. Over here, you can see this link, legalbluebook.com. So here it says, to buy a print copy or a subscription to the electronic version, visit this website. So just click on this. Here, this, the one that is appearing on the right side of the screen here, the Blue Book, and it's showing you rules and tables. This is how it looks like. I have not subscribed to it. I didn't pay for this. You have a 3-day free trial. Here you can see sign up for free trial. You can click on this and you can enter your details, give a particular password, and then you can use this Blue Book page. You can use it for the next 3 days. The free trial will be for next 3 days. So for the next 3 days, utilize it properly and just take down the important pointers, like what all citations you want. So I have 3 days free trial. It ends on 26th. So let's go to it. Yeah. As you can see here on the top, it ends on 26th. So you have an option next to it, purchase a subscription. I don't think so it is needed. 3 days are more than sufficient. You can just jot it down in a piece of paper, or you can maintain a Word document. You can just, one thing, even though it shows like this, I don't think so you can just copy paste it. So try if it is possible. But when I tried to copy paste the content, it didn't happen. It appeared as if you can copy it, but when I actually tried to paste it in Word, it didn't work out. Okay, without further ado, let's see the rules. So here, structure and use of citations. They've given a proper listing of your like. So let's get into the first one. Citation. I'm just going to pick the main important ones that we researchers usually use while conducting the research study, while you're footnoting a particular article or whatever. So let's get into it. Citation, sentences, and clauses in law reviews. So how does it look like? Here, let's take an example of this. So here it's saying C. John Calvin Jeffries Jr. and Paul B. So this is the name of the author. Okay, this starting from John till Stephen 3. It is the name of the authors of here. Defenses, presumptions, and burden of proof. This is the name of the review, the article, like the journal, the article, whatever. And then comes your page number, and how many page number specifically. 1325 is the page number. And here again, it is actually the specific page number, and how in total what is the, let's understand it clearly. Yeah. So, and then 1979 will be the year. So then the authors point out that the use of affirmative defense. So basically here we are footnoting from where this has been taken, the name of the article and whatever we are giving that. And next to it, we in one line we are depicting what the authors want to point out. The authors point out the use of affirmative defenses. So in this particular literature, what the authors want to point out, we are typing it here. So, and specifically in this page number 1357, what the authors argue, we are also stating that. So this is one of the citation sentences. It is not just citation. So next to the citation, you are giving a particular sentence as well. So this is known as citation sentence. Yes, similarly, everything else. And here we can see few case laws have been taken. Their page numbers have been given and the year has been given. These all are foreign jurisdictions. So accordingly, you can understand. Next, let's go to statutes. It's clearly given over here. First, the official name of the act, then the title number, then the code, then here you can see the section symbols and the span of sections, whatever, and then here the year in which the act has come into being. And now, as I said, this is totally for it. Blue Book is of US origin, so they have given examples of US acts. And here, this is the name of this is the title number, this is the code, this is the section, this is the specific section that is given 1291, and this is the symbol. In India, we write S dot, right, for section, and here they have the symbol, and here again, it is the code, edition cited. So usually researchers, they stick to, I mean, if you're giving Indian case laws, but all this will constitute US case laws. This is for US. Let's see books. Here again, author's full name, then the title, then whatever page that you want to specifically know your reader, that is page number 310, and what are the editor's name for a book. Usually if you have editors, you'll write their name as well in brackets, and then for editors you use eds dot, and then the 6th edition is ed dot, and then the year of publication. So this is how books, treaties, reports, papers, dictionaries, encyclopedias, all the non-periodical materials are cited. Next, author. So here, as we can see, here the name of the author, then first time a work is cited, always give the author's full name. And after that, whatever the designation the author has, that is JR, Junior, or the Roman. And then they have clearly given, do not include a designation such as doctor or professor, even if it appears on the title page. This is how they have designed the Blue Book citation. So therefore you can't use DR or PR of OF, like for professor and doctor in Blue Book. And let's get back to the example. So first, the name of the author with the designation, and then follows the title, whatever you are referring to, the title of the article, the author, whatever the author has written that. And then 57, 58, here it shows the page numbers and the year. 1995 is the year. Similarly, if there are two authors, you just put an and over here. Okay. And if there are more than two authors, you just put the symbol EDAL dot. Next. So yeah, this is also explained how you. Okay. So this is not completed right now. Let's go to unpublished and forthcoming, that is the working papers. So here, the name, as you can see, you will write it in this way: cite unpublished manuscript not scheduled for publication in ordinary Roman type, beginning with author's full name. That is here in this way. Then comes the title of the work in the title page. It will follow. Then in caps. So this is how it looks like with the example given here. Similarly, the rest follows. And for dissertation and thesis that we're talking about, if it is not yet published and you want to refer to, this is how you have to refer. And here's why are we particularly saying all this is because probably they might be working upon the same, and then you can give the date if you have a particular date, but usually you don't have particular dates usually. So as we can see here, the second example is 2014. There's no date of here. So yeah, that is it. The major of the ones that we covered. We saw case laws citation. We saw for journals and articles, and we saw how it is for the unpublished work as well. You can click on each of them and see the example given here one by one. and copy it in three days should be more than enough to just go through all this content, and in your own words take only few of the needed ones that you're going to cite for your research project, and accordingly keep the examples. And then, so as the trial, I don't think so it would be needed, any person should go for a subscription over here. Before the trial ends, you can actually type all this into Word and keep it ready. So this is Blue Book in gist. Let's see standard Indian legal citation. So I'm going to stop it for a second. Give me 2 minutes. There's some technical issue. I hope the screen is visible right now.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is a user guide manual for the standard Indian legal citation, that in short you call it SILC. As I mentioned earlier, they have drafted this. I mean, in India, this is our own indigenous citation. Just a second. Let's begin with this. Yeah. So here, let's not get into the introduction, like how it all began, the main background objectives and all. Let's just directly get into how this citation looks like. So for Indian cases, here, as we can see, the name, let's very famous case law, Keshavananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. You will write the name of the case and then followed by a comma. Then this is the citation. That is a citation as in the case law citation. AIR 1973 SC 1461. This will be available online or on SEC online or even on Google as well. So, and then the page number 1480 is the page number of here. So this is how it looks like, and it's explained detailed in this paragraph here. Next one, the legislative materials. Those are the statutes. So let's take an example of your of the Indian Penal Code or Indian Contract Act for that matter. If you're going to point out a particular section, it is denoted by S dot, as I was pointing it when we were doing Blue Book citation. So here we don't have a particular symbol as how the US jurisdiction has for its statutes. It has a symbol. We denote it by S dot. Section 376 clause 2 clause G. So this is one section, so it is denoted by capital S dot. If there are more than one, then capital S and then followed by a small one with a dot. And this is how orders and rules are also cited. Next is for a bill, how to cite. It is the name of the bill, year, and the status of the bill. Is it passed or pending or draft in the drafting stage? Then comes Indian Constitution. We saw for all the other procedural acts earlier, that is here the sections and all. Now let's see for articles. It is very simple. Article, let's say Article 21, ART, it is denoted by ART dot article, and then 21, comma, the Constitution of India. So that is article, and if there's any schedule, then the article of the schedule number and the Constitution of India, followed by Constitution of India. Next, what is this Ibid? So let's say, take an example of this particular book, PC Markenda, Law Relating to Arbitration and Conciliation. The page number is given, it's 6th edition, and it is published in 2006. Now, I am talking in the 10th, that is, let's say, in a paragraph, in a particular sentence, I've pointed out this, so I'm giving this footnoting over here, and in the very next sentence also I am giving something related to this particular book. I'm taking something from this particular book again, so I need not give the same citation again. If it is just below it, I can use the term Ibid. It is basically used to refer an immediately preceding one, exactly as it has been cited before. So I will use this. And let's say if the page number is something else, and then the author has taken the same statement, so you can say Ibid at 64. So this is at page number 64, I'm taking the same citation. So this is how it is. And supra is used when the author has fully cited the previous one. So let's take an example and understand. So for example, supra, let's see this series 43, 44, 45, 46. All these are your footnotings. And supra 43. So supra 43, what is 43? It is V.N. Shukla, Constitution of India. So in footnote number 46, I want to take this footnote number 43, so I'll mention supra 43. If it is exactly preceding, that is, as we can see, 45 and 44, Ibid for 45 means it is same as the footnote number 44. Ibid is basically just above it, and supra is used when it is somewhere else. Supra is used when it is not above it, it is somewhere else. Like, let's say in this case it is somewhere in 40 or 43. So this is how Ibid and supra works. And the C example, it's basically a prefix. Why do we use this? When the cited statement is not directly related to the given authority, it is not directly related. So you are basically saying there is a sentence. I'm saying article 21, so and so. I'm explaining about article 21. But the case law that I'm giving there as footnote is not directly related to that. It is somewhat related to that, but it is not directly related to that. So that's when I use the term C. So then journals and law reviews, it goes like this. The citing method has been mentioned over here for hard copy and online as well. These are the sequences to be followed. Then similarly for Law Commission reports as well. The citation method has been given here. That is the report number, title, subject, the page number that you're taking with the year, and then the URL, copy paste the URL, and then on then type last seen on the day that you use, the day, month and year should be given. The example is also given here. Then the electronic, that's websites, directly the e-sources that you use on the websites that you use. Directly cited the title of the page, name of the website, URL, and last seen. So then blogs as well, name of the author, title of the blog, name of the blog, the URL you'll copy paste, and followed by last seen, on which date you used it. Then books are very easy, as we saw earlier as well. Name of the author, that is PC Markanda, then the name of the book itself, then the page number, that is 98, edition, and the year it has been published. We should remember to put the commas and full stops at the given space. It is very necessary because each citation differs based on these commas and full stops. So we have to be careful of that. Then edited books, title of the book, page number, editors, and the edition year in brackets. International cases, how do we cite? Simple, name of the case, then the particular case citation, the year, and the name of the court. If you are taking it from definitely from other jurisdictions, you will mention it in bracket as we've seen here. Then articles, it differs for hard copy and online as well. Similarly for magazines, newspapers again for online version and print version, it is different. For print version, name of the author, if at all it is given, otherwise you can omit it. And then the title of the article, name of the newspaper, page number, and whatever the city edition is, that is here, for instance, it's given Kolkata, and the date. For online articles, definitely the URL should be there and it should be followed by the last seen, that is the date on which you refer to the newspaper article. So this is it about the standard Indian legal citation. So I'll stop sharing and it's open for any questions.
Ma'am, hello. I had a question.
Yes.
So, like in I was a little confused between Ibid and Supra. Ibid, we said that if we are giving the same reference on a later page, we will write Ibid, say at 73. So how is it then different from Supra?
Just a second. Yeah. So is it visible, first of all?
Yes. It is.
Yeah. Okay. Let's understand what Ibid is. So take the example of PC Markanda. This is the author's name, book, law relating. We can say, okay, this is the example. Now, why did I use Ibid? Let's understand. Ibid is used to what? To refer an immediately preceding authority. In a particular paragraph, I have taken 2 lines from this book. So I have directly put as number 10. I mean, I've cited it as number 10, and in that number 10 footnoting, I've given this. Now, following that, the next sentence also is from this book only. The next sentence that I've typed is from this book only. So I don't want to footnote it in number 11 again as PC Markanda. So in point number 10, sorry, here it is done. So the next sentence also, if I'm referring to is the same book, I need not type. I'll just write it Ibid. Okay. And here, if it is Ibid at 64, here the page number is somewhere, it's elsewhere. Here, if the page number is from where the author has cited, for instance, here Ibid at 64. Here 64 is the page number. Okay, wherever the page, so it has, let's say it has 70 pages, and page number 64, I have cited, I want to cite a statement. So I will write Ibid at the page number. So Ibid at 64, I will go to page number 64 and it will be in page number 64. So that is the difference. And supra, just a second. Supra is the footnote number where the authority was first cited in the paper. Okay, so the difference here 21 is the footnote number where the authority was first cited in the paper. They are given the example of here. See, so here the difference is the first citing in the paper. Here it is not the very first cited. I hope it is differentiated. For supra, it is the first, wherever it is first cited. But for Ibid, it is not necessary that it should be first cited in that particular page. Is it clear or?
Yes, it's clear, ma'am. Thank you.
Any other doubts?
Ma'am, I think we don't have any further doubts.
Okay.
Right. So just a second, ma'am. Just a second. Right. So I think we can end the session here. Thank you, ma'am, for addressing the questions raised by the participants in the extremely insightful session. I would also like to thank the participants for their incisive questions that made the session interactive and even more engaging. And last but not least, the sign language interpreters, Preeti ma'am and Arun sir, for interpreting the session. With this, today's session comes to an end. Thank you everyone for joining. See you in the next lecture. Thank you.